Hello, everyone, and welcome to how to reach your. I'm sorry, starting off a little shaky. And welcome to the webinar entitled How to Reach Your Goals, Your Business Goals, and Personal Goals for 2016. And I really shouldn't put the year in there because I could keep it evergreen by allowing it to not have any dates in it. But sometimes it's important to reflect on what the date is and what year it is and things of that nature for different reasons in our lives. So we'll leave the year in this one. It may even show up in the webinar itself in the slideshow. But my position for you, or my encouragement to you today, is to attempt to set goals this year in a different way, to look at goal setting differently than you may have done in the past. Very often we hear about, especially this time of the year, when you get to the beginning of a year, in case you're listening to this later this year, this is being recorded in January. And I want you to realize that it doesn't really matter what time of the year it is. Any day, you can choose any day as a day to start over. You can choose any day to begin again. You can choose any day to choose a different path in terms of where you're headed as it pertains to your business in particular. Now, this presentation is in general for entrepreneurs. However, I did indicate personal goals as well, because you really can't separate the person from the person or personal from the entrepreneur, because the entrepreneur is a person, right? And the person has personal challenges and things of this nature. And I was listening to a recording recently, and the speaker talked about the fact that very often problems in business are in fact personal problems. They're not necessarily business problems per se, but they're actually problems with the entrepreneur that are manifesting or showing up in their business. So I want to challenge you to think around some of those things. And as we talk through some of these things during the next hour or so, I want you to keep in mind that some of the things that could be internal to you, or things that could be from your past or your present even, just different challenges that you may be going through that could be keeping you from reaching some of your goals, or even keeping you from even starting along the lines of reaching your goals, or even to pursue your goals. So we want to set goals, and then we want to demolish them. Now, while I like the slide and it sounds really cool, you kind of want to demolish your goals, and then in some ways, I don't want you to demolish your goals, because if you demolish your goals, of course, you're reaching them and you're far surpassing them. But then again, if you far surpass your goals, I can pose the question, did you just set goals too low? So that's something to keep in mind when you're setting goals. When I talk to people about setting goals, one of the things, and I'll mention this later as well, but one of the things you want to keep in mind is that you want to set goals that are stretchingly realistic. You don't want it to be so easy that you can just walk up and do it. It needs to be hard enough that you have to reach. When I illustrate this in person, I'll stretch up on my tippy toes and reach up as high as I can. And I'll say, you want it to be just beyond your reach. So you want to have to grow in order to reach your goals. You don't want it to be that simple to just, oh, I'm just fully equipped, I'm just going to go do it. It should be, hey, I'm fully equipped, I have the tools necessary, let me go and grow and become the person that I need to become in order to do what it is I want to do. You should have to become a different person. You should have to become a different person in order to reach your goals. Your goals should be big enough to require some level of change and commitment on your part in order for you to reach your goals. So you want to set goals, and then we're going to say we want to demolish them. We want to make sure that we're emphatically reaching and conquering those goals. That's what we really want to do. And here's the title again, How to Reach Your Business and Personal Goals in 2016. So you may be wondering, well, who's this I'm listening to? Who am I listening to? Well, my name is Kelly Mariano. You can see here, I'm a business coach, an entrepreneur. I'm the founder of Impact, which is a company presenting this particular webinar. I'm a professional speaker. I previously held positions as president of Toastmasters, so I have a lot of public speaking experience, and then I'm an author, a published author as well. And this is me presenting at a workshop about a year or so ago. Question for you before we get too deep in. Do you have any idea what January 17th is? Do you have any idea what January 17th is? I should poll my audience to see if you guys know what January 17th is. Does anyone know what January 17th is? You can put it in the chat box if you know what January 17th is. Just a quick quiz. Who knows what January 17th is? Anyone? Give you just a few seconds. See if anyone comes up with an answer. Guess no one knows what January 17th is. So I'm going to tell you what January 17th is. January 17th is the official Ditch New Year's Resolution Day. And yes, that is a real date on real calendars. Ditch New Year's Resolution Day, or ditch your New Year's Resolution Day, whichever way you want to look at it. And you see a bunch of resolutions here. So it doesn't matter what it is. By January 17th, that's the official day in which you can release your New Year's resolutions. Now, we all know when we think about a new year, we get into a new year, we know people have all kinds of resolutions like here on the screen. You want to quit smoking, drink less, be happy. You want to lose weight. Lose weight tends to be one of the ones that stands out in the minds of many people the most, because we know gyms, if you go to a gym or even drive by a gym or what have you, this time of year, gyms tend to be a little more crowded than they will be, let's say, in March or April, because the resolution has worn off and the resolve along with it to complete that particular goal. Well, it's not really a goal, but to accomplish that particular thing that they've resolved to do has already, the energy to do it or the commitment to do it has waned already, and they're no longer committed to it. And subsequently, people are not in the gym as much. And it happens with a lot of other things, whether it's drinking or smoking or what have you, because there's a lot of effort put into these types of things. And we joke about the one with weight loss, but the fact of the matter is, for a lot of people, weight loss is a significant challenge in their lives. And some of these other things are as well. Quitting smoking, maybe trying to drink less, saving money. All of these are some of the challenges that we deal with in our lives, and some of your friends and families are walking through some of these same things. So I'm not making light of any of these resolutions. I just want you to take a slightly different perspective on them. So even though Ditch Your New Year's Resolution Day is January 17th, I actually want you to move a little bit sooner. I want you to ditch your New Year's resolution today. Let go of the New Year's resolution today. Let's just give up resolutions altogether, not just for 2016 for the rest of this year, but we're just going to give up resolutions altogether. And we're going to choose to take a different approach as we move forward. So I free you to let go of your New Year's resolution today. And when we let go of our New Year's resolution today, one of the things we're going to do is we're going to choose to develop SMART goals. Now, a lot of times when you're in webinars, there's a lot of lead in, but I'm not trying to pre-frame you for the sale of anything. I'm not trying to create any type of hype for you. I just simply want to give you the information, the empowerment to go and create goals that you're going to actually follow through with, or be able to follow through with, accomplish, and then feel good about those accomplishments. And then, of course, celebrate them in the end. So instead of setting resolutions, what I want you to do is set goals. And I want you to set goals that are, as the screen shows you, that are SMART. You want to set SMART goals, and these SMART goals are designed to help you craft or put together goals that are going to be put together in such a way that makes it a little bit easier for you to accomplish them. And we'll talk through what SMART goals are a little bit, and then we'll talk through a few other things that need to accompany SMART goals in order for you to actually be successful. A lot of times it's not enough to just set goals. Some people can set goals and then just go after it. And some of us need to set goals. And then there's some other pieces we need to make sure that we're mindful of in order to walk out the entire process. So let's get right into SMART goals. Now you're on this call, so that you know the call is going to be recorded. It'll be up on YouTube. So I'll send it out to you guys or post it up on Facebook later on once it's been processed through the system. So let's start with the S. We're going to start in the beginning with S, which is for specific. Your goals need to be specific. What I mean by specific, what I mean is you can't create goals with words like more, better, greater, smaller, lighter, any of the ER words, things of that nature that are comparative to something else. Your goal needs to be specific. So if you want to make more money, you don't want to set a goal that just says, I want to make more money, because more is not a specific term. $1 is more, $5 is more, $50,000 more a year is more. They're all more. Which type of more are you looking for? Because the activity necessary to make $5 more in 2016 and 2015 is very different than the activity necessary to make $50,000 more in 2016 than in 15. So you want to keep that in mind. You want your goal to be very specific. So, or if you were trying to lose weight, for example, you don't want to say, hey, I just want to get smaller, I just want to get thinner, I want to get, sometimes people will just say more in shape, and that we're throwing that more term out there again, which is, again, comparative, but we have to define what that looks like. So in the case of weight loss, it may be, again, a very set number. I weigh 170 pounds, I want to get down to 150, so I want to lose 20 pounds. Or you could just say, hey, my goal is to get to this specific weight. I want to get to 150 pounds in whatever amount of time. And we'll talk about time a little bit later, but that would be the first element of the SMART goal, is to be very specific. Now, what I want to share with you, though, is because this messes up people, when I help people set their goals or help clients as a business coach and I'm working with the client, if I'm helping them to set goals, what I find that challenges people the most is when it's a goal that seems like it's a little more difficult to set a number to or make as quote unquote specific. So what I want to encourage you to do is to find a way to attach an activity or something that is tangible or measurable, if you will, which leads us to the M, but you want to find something that we can make a determination or be very specific with to know that we're in better shape. So, or not better shape, to reach our goals. So let's say, look, one of my goals every year is to kind of challenge my mind, right? To get, I don't know if it's smarter or just maybe more knowledgeable in different areas. And one area is in that of spiritual growth. So how do I measure spiritual growth? There's no scale for it. There's no measuring stick that I can put up to myself and say, hey, I've grown in the spirit realm or what have you. And I realize everybody's not, a particular believer or what have you, but the principle is the same. So just follow the principle with me for a moment. So when you have this concept that I want to grow spiritually, and I've heard people set goals like that, hey, I want to grow spiritually. Well, what does that look like from a practical standpoint? Well, for me, one of the things that looks like is I've chosen to read a certain number of books. And in my case, I have 5 books listed for just specifically for spiritual growth. It has nothing to do with any, the Bible or what have you. We're talking about 5 books outside of that. So that's part of growing spiritually to me. Another thing might be, hey, I want to make sure that I'm doing devotionals a certain number of times per week. So let's say last year I was only doing devotionals sporadically, maybe once or twice a week tops. But now I have it in my calendar that I'm doing goals 3 times, at least 3 times a week, or let's say 4 times a week, or what have you. So while that is based on more, but it's certainly the idea is if I wanted to grow spiritually, that puts me in a different place than I was before because I'm being more consistent. So even though I'm using a more term, but I can measure whether or not I've reached the level of more that I've decided to reach. So what you want to do is take your goal and use it that way. For example, another example is one of my goals is in the social realm to develop myself socially so that I'm kind of interacting with folks more and things of that nature. So one of my goals in that area is to hang out with friends a certain number of times per month or per quarter. I think it's per quarter. I forgot how it's structured, quite honestly. But that's an idea. So I can't measure what it looks like to be quote unquote more social, but I can define what that means to me and what that looks like, and then attach a goal to that. So I can attach a goal to something that isn't necessarily measurable in and of itself. So since we're talking, I keep stepping on the term measurable, we'll go to the M in the SMART goals and talk about measurable. So that's, for most people, that's a pretty obvious thing, right? The measurable just is that. Can you make a determination, an objective determination as to whether or not you have reached your goal? And that's why you want to stay away from more and better and things of this nature, because it's hard to make an objective determination as to whether or not you have arrived at your goal. But with a specific goal, such as, hey, I want to make $20,000 more this year than last year. Well, when we get to the end of the year, I can look at the receipts or my W-2s or whatever it is you're using for income or your bank statements or what have you. You can look at your numbers from the current year. When you get to the end of the year, you can look at those numbers and then compare it to the year before and see, is it $20,000 more than the year before? Either it is or it isn't. It's not subjective at all. There's no opinion in it. It just is or it isn't. So again, you want to make sure that your goals are measurable. Again, with the weight loss goal, if my goal was to get down to 150 pounds, let's say by the end of 2016, if I'm 155 pounds, then I have not reached my goal. If I'm at 145, I've met and exceeded, or in this case, as we talked about earlier, I may have quote unquote demolished my goal. I don't know if we call 5 pounds demolishing, but you get the idea. The idea is that you want to think about your goal being measurable. Can I measure it? Can someone from the outside simply look at it and make a determination without knowing anything about me whether or not this goal was in fact reached? The example I gave with money, yes, there's a very specific dollar amount. Either it was made or it wasn't. About the weight loss, either that goal weight was either reached or it wasn't reached. Some of the other things we talked about, yes, I can't measure spiritual growth, but the things that I wanted to do to grow myself spiritually, yes, those things were accomplished or they were not accomplished. So that's what I want you to think about. You want to make sure that your goals are both specific and then measurable. These really go hand in hand because, the specific allows it to be more measurable. So you really want to make sure that those are your really big keys, because a lot of times people don't reach goals first of all because they haven't made them specific enough. They're not even sure where they want to go. So it's like getting in the boat, starting the engine, letting go of the rope. I know it has another name, but letting go of the rope and going out without having any idea where you're planning on going. You're just going to let the boat kind of drift along and kind of hope you get to where you might want to be, or you're hoping to one day be, or something, instead of very specifically mapping out, this is exactly, hey, I'm getting in my boat in Philadelphia. I want to make my way down to Chesapeake Bay. and this is how I'm going to do it. And you know how to chart your way down there. So anyway, so you have specific, measurable. Then A is attainable. You want to make sure that your goals are attainable. Now, in the beginning, I talked about making sure your goals are stretchingly realistic. In other words, you have to grow as a person in order to reach those goals. But you still want your goal to be attainable within that context of being able to grow and reach it. For example, if I decided I want to I want to become a lawyer, I want to pass the bar and become an attorney. So that's very specific. Passing the bar is a very specific thing. Is it measurable? Yes. I've either passed the bar with the necessary score, what have you, or I have not. Attainable. Okay. Is it attainable? Yes, it's an attainable thing for me to do. I could do that. However, well, we didn't put time into it yet, but when you start bringing the time element in, if I were to set a goal saying, hey, I wanted to accomplish becoming an attorney by the end of 2016, and I've never been in a college before, then that would be a non-attainable goal, or certainly an unrealistic goal for you to think that you're going to finish not only 4 years of college if you hadn't gone to college, but then going to law school and all of those things and getting that done in less than 12 months. So that's not attainable. Are you likely to go from, if your business is making $5,000 this year, could you go to $50,000 in a year, 10 times that? Certainly. Depends on the business, depends on what you're doing, whether or not you put the pieces in place to do it. That's a possibility. Are you going to go from $5,000 in business last year to $500,000 6 months later? Is it possible? Depends on what it is you're doing, what kind of business, how legal it is. No, I'm just kidding. But if, well, sort of. But anyway, if you're, depending on what the business is and what it is you're marketing. For example, I was helping someone who has a service business, and in that particular business, you get paid by your time. You provide a service, maybe the service takes an hour, and then you get paid accordingly. So a certain level of income is going to be somewhat prohibited based on the fact that you're being paid for each hour. Because if you're getting paid by the hour, you can't increase the number of hours in a year. There's only, if you're working 40 hours a week in a typical job, you have 2,080 hours. Or just keep in mind 2,000. You have roughly 2,000 hours, right? Or if you just want to take it on an individual level, since most of us are entrepreneurs, we have 168 hours in any given week. At some point, we need to sleep, eat, hopefully bathe, and things of this nature. So we can't use the whole 168 hours to do business, or at least not if it relies on us as individuals doing it. So when you think about that, you can break down whether or not a goal is attainable in a particular time frame based on whether or not time would even allow for that to occur. Do you have enough time to get that done, to reach a particular goal? Is it even humanly possible? You can't, as a matter of fact, I was watching a cartoon, and the one person said it's he was helping his friend was a rapper who had kind of fallen off, right? So he was also like, he was kind of a sidekick to a rapper, and he said he had went and gotten a job at Wendy's, and he came in, and then he told the guy, he said, listen, I don't know if I'm gonna be able to support this household anymore. And the previous rapper said, what do you mean? I was there for you, I took care of you all these years, and now all of a sudden you can't look out for me. And the guy said, no. He says, not like that. He said, I'm only making $7 an hour. So he said, I figured, I did the calculation. Your mortgage is $12,000 a month. I'd have to work 84 hours a day to make up the difference. And he said, so I went to my manager and asked for some more hours, et cetera, et cetera. So the whole thing's kind of funny and how they played it out. But realistically, it was impossible for him to do that in the context of that position. And that's what I want you to think about, whether or not your goal is an attainable one. First of all, because you don't want to set yourself up for failure by setting goals that are unrealistic, goals that can't be reached within reason. Now, what you may want to do is, even if it's something in your heart to accomplish, you may want to create steps, if you will, or create levels to it. So if your goal is to get to a point where, let's say, I don't know, let's say you want to make $500,000 per year and you're at $25,000 a year, you may need to take steps where maybe in 2016 you'll go from 25,000 and 15 to maybe 50, 75, maybe 100,000 this year, and etc. I don't like to cap the dreams of others because I've seen people go increase their income by incredible amounts, multiples of two, three, four, even 10 times their revenue from year over year. So I know it's possible, but also know that a lot of people won't do what's necessary to get to that level. So I don't want you to automatically think on that level. And if you do, some of the things we're going to talk about later will help you frame that out properly. So when you're drafting your goals, go ahead and draft your goals out. Keep these things in mind, but go ahead and draft them out from your heart's perspective. And then we'll talk about some things on the back end that'll help make clear whether or not your goals are where they really need to be set for that particular year. I don't want to shy anyone down, but also, again, don't want you to set up goals that are not realistic, that you're not going to accomplish and set you up for a bad year because you could be down on yourself all year because you're falling short of your goals, and you're falling short because they were unattainable in the first place. So let's quickly move to R. R is relevant, and I like the word relevant. Now, if you see SMART goals, if you were to Google SMART goals, look for in other places, you'll see that the R very often will be listed. It could be listed as relevant, and it also could be listed as realistic. Now, to me, the attainable and realistic really don't need to coexist in the same acronym, if you will. But the reason I like relevant also is because the relevant one talks about why it's important. Why is this goal important to you? Why is it something that you need to accomplish or you want to accomplish? What's the why? Because you need to know if your why is big enough for you to accomplish these goals. We talked about, I shared with you that there are people who will double and triple and quadruple or even 10x their business from year over year. People do that all the time. But very often, if you talk to them, their why, the relevancy, is very big. It's a very big reason. There's a reason they need to get there. Like if you suddenly had, let's do it for weight loss. If you got a doctor's report that you had to lose 50 pounds or you could die from, let's say, diabetes or something like that, or some ailment tied to your weight, your R, in this case, your relevance or your why, the why you're doing it, becomes really big because you'd like to stay alive. You'd like not to have this physical ailment or these challenges. So if your why is big enough, then all of a sudden, some things that may have seemed unattainable before could suddenly be attainable. You'll suddenly realize, hey, I can drive past Dunkin' Donuts and make a different choice in terms of what I'm going to eat. I can stop smoking cigarettes and try those little funny electronic things or whatever. And I'm not endorsing any of these, whatever, or any particular product or whatever. I'm just saying that whatever steps people take to, or may need to take to make those changes that they found difficult, suddenly if the why is big enough, they can sometimes make those changes. Sometimes people just find out, hey, or their child may challenge them, hey, we can't go out and play frisbee and catch and all these kinds of things because my parents are too heavy or what have you, or we don't have enough money to put my child in the special school that they may need to be in for whatever reason, whether it's private or special for some other reason. Maybe they're gifted artistically or as a musician or what have you, and I can't put them in that school because I simply can't afford it. Those types of things could become your why to making things change in your life. But evaluate what your why is. Why do you want to do that? Because sometimes you may realize that your why has nothing to do with you. Your why might be you're trying to live out your parents' dreams or something like that. That why may not be big enough for you to undergo a substantial change in your life to get there. But if the why, like I said, is something that saves your life, maybe saves your marriage, saves something significant, keeps you from losing your home, any number of things like that, then your why may become really big and will take you where you need it to take you. So again, so far we have specific. Your goals need to be specific. Identify a particular point that we can determine whether or not, from an objective point of view, whether or not you've reached it. It needs to be measurable. Again, we need to be able to take a ruler out and determine or measure it or look at the numbers or what have you and come to the conclusion without subjectivity as to whether or not you've reached your goals. The A is attainable. It needs to be something that you can do. It should require some level of growth, some level of extension on your part. Get on your tippy toes and reach as far as you can. And it should be just a little bit beyond that, if not greater beyond that, depending on how you're willing to grow. But you should need to grow in order to reach it. And then the R is your relevancy. Why is this particular thing important to you? Why do you want to accomplish it? Why do you need to accomplish it this year? Why now? Make sure all those things are in alignment. And then T is the, I was going to say the easy one, but in some ways it is. It's the time sensitive. And it's easy in some ways because we're talking about goals for 2016. So the timeline overall is kind of already set. We have a timeline for December 31st. So if you're setting up goals for 2016, many of your goals will deadline on December 31st, 2016. Now, you may have goals with deadlines that come before that. You may have goals that have to be done before secondary goals are done. You may need to reach a certain level in one thing. Let's say you wanted to be able to run in a marathon, but let's say you're 200 pounds overweight. So your weight on your knees may be a problem. So you may need to lose weight first to a certain point before you can even start the process of truly running to get prepared for a marathon. So that would be a two-step process. So you can't decide, oh, this is actually a good point. You can't make a determination that, hey, I'm going to lose this weight by November 15th, and then think in the remaining 6 weeks you're going to prepare to run your first marathon and you've never run before. You would not likely be equipped to do such a thing. Or the example I gave with going to college, or let's say I'm going to get a degree. Let's say I wanted to get a law degree, but I've never been in college before. Let's say I've never even set foot in a college. So I can't get to my law degree without seeing a college admissions person, without seeing probably a counselor at some point to choose some classes, without taking classes, without having chosen a school, a particular program in school, because you don't have to go for pre-law. You can go for any number of things beforehand. Well, not any number, but there's a number of things that you could choose, right? So there's some things that have to happen beforehand. So I can't get to, so let's say I wanted to be done my degree in 8 years, or I don't even remember how long law school is, but let's say I've decided within the next 8 years, I want to make sure by, what would that be, 2024? Geez, can you believe it? So by 2024, I want to have my law degree, and I've never gone to college before. So I can start pacing those things out. But I know certain steps have to have occurred. So I can't wait if it's, I guess, 10 years, if it's 10 year or 8 year, I don't remember how long the process is. I think it's for undergrad. I think it's 4 more, and then, but anyway, don't hold me to it because I've never pursued my law degree. But let's say it's an 8-year process. We'll give it an 8-year process. So if it's an 8-year process, the point is I can't wait until, I can't go 3 years in and then start and try to finish in the same time. Now, it may still be humanly possible at that point, but at some point I'll lose the ability to hit my overall goal, which is the 8-year goal, because the sub goals, the first undergrad degree goal, is going to be jeopardized because I'm not going to hit that one. So I can't hit a 4-year degree in, let's say, a year. So that would push everything else back because they can't be, because the sub goals can't be met. It's kind of hard to kind of walk through that without a very specific example, but that's kind of a good one when you think of going to going to college and getting some sort of advanced degree. You obviously have to finish the undergrad degree before the advanced degree. So, you have to plan for those things. So if your goal is a big goal, if you have a goal like that down the road, which is not going to be finished in the first year, you want to address what part of that goal might I be able to finish this particular year. Now, if your goal is, hey, I want to one day have my own practice in law, so you may want to determine, hey, I have my undergrad, my grad school, finish up your JD degree, and then pass the bar, obviously, maybe work for someone else for a period of time, then hang your own sign or what have you. So if you have that progression, you have to account for all of those steps. So when you're planning your long range goals, those are some of the things you have to take into consideration. But even for a short range, like 1 year or less, you have to keep in mind your long-term vision for your life, like where are you really trying to go. So where you're trying to go will help you determine what types of things you want to set goals for in this particular year. So I hope that is beneficial to you and you guys were able to follow that. And we'll talk a little bit. We'll have a Q&A at the end, see if you guys have any questions for me. But I have a quick question for you guys, if I can pull it up. And I want you guys to answer this question really quickly. Hopefully you guys see the question. I just put up a poll question. Let me know if you guys do not see the poll question. But I'd like you to answer that question really quickly, about whether or not you guys have goals set up for the year. Okay, so you don't see the poll? Okay, great. So listen, so you can just answer in the chat window since the chat window's open. Yeah, I wonder where it opens at. Okay. Learning process. Maybe I have to figure out, maybe there's something else I needed to do, but we'll go forward. So here's the thing. Oh, maybe, well, anyway, so here's the question. Do you guys have goals, written goals for the year? You could just type the response in the chat window. Okay, good. So you guys have goals, that's great, and they're written out. That's good. So you want to make sure that for those of you who have goals, you want to make sure that you're taking a look at your goals. You don't want to write your goals in January or whenever you start writing your goals and then wait until December to take a look at them and see how you've done over the course of the year. Now, in terms of writing my goals, I actually start writing my goals in November because I like to have my goals finished by Thanksgiving. So the idea is so that I have a 13-month run, or if you will, December becomes kind of a lead-in to my new year. And that's just the way I like to look at my goals. But whenever you write your goals, you want to make sure that you're looking at your goals regularly throughout the course of the year, whether it's, some people say they look at them daily, weekly, monthly, quarterly. I'm down for all of those, but definitely make sure that you're looking at them on a regular basis. I would definitely think you'd want to look at them no less than weekly, because it's kind of a good time to reset, maybe take a Sunday afternoon or something like that. Whatever is a day where you're able to slow life down for a minute and just take a look at where you are, see how you've done, because you could be throwing yourself off and not realize it, and you won't realize it for a while if you're not looking at your goals for a while. It's easy for us to allow ourselves to be thrown off course, if you will. So that's the idea behind SMART goals. So make sure that your goals, I didn't ask you guys that question, but make sure that your goals meet these criteria, that they are in fact SMART goals. Now, a lot of times I've heard speakers talk about SMART goals and it becomes the end all be all to have developed SMART goals. Hey, I have SMART goals, now I'm on my way. But there's more to it than that. There's more to SMART goals than just those particular points. Now, I found this other slide, well, not the slide, this particular graphic while I was preparing for this particular webinar. And what I want to bring your attention to is where that big arrow is pointing to, where it says action oriented. Now, this is a different list of for SMART than we use. But the reason I put this one on the screen anyway is because I wanted you to think about the action-oriented component. That part is what very often gets left out. A lot of times we will develop our goals, we put our goals on paper, maybe even show them to some people that are hopefully close to us, friends, family, what have you. But we have these goals that we're going to maybe hold ourselves accountable to. And then sometimes, and for many of us, or like we talked about with the resolutions, after a certain period of time, nothing happens. What happens is, or you've set up goals and then you have no idea how you're going to get from here to there. I don't know if this will convey very well through a webinar. I should have found the graphic. I didn't think about it earlier. But there's this graphic, or looks like a little cartoon picture of a person working out a huge calculation on a board in school. And there's a bunch of calculations on the left, and a bunch of calculations on the right. And then in the middle, it says, and a miracle occurs here. So we kind of don't want to take that position, and when it comes to our goals and how we're going to achieve our goals, we don't want to have a section in our plan that says a miracle occurs here, or we just write the goals down and just hope that they're just going to manifest one day. What we want to do is, once you have your goals written out, and what I do is I recommend people have goals developed for all aspects of your life, your personal, professional, your mental, your mental / or educational side, your social, family, probably something I'm forgetting. I usually forget one of them. But there's 6 life zones, and usually what I do is when I'm working with someone, I'll give them what I call a wagon wheel, and on the wagon wheel, it's 6 spokes. And the 6 spokes address these 6 life zones. And the first thing I do is have the person identify where in their life they feel they are in each area, in each one of those areas on the wagon wheel. So if I'd like to say for the physical, for the physical one, I like to say if the idea of even going to a gym kind of makes you nauseous, because you're not having it, then you're probably going to be like a 0 or 1 on the physical side. Even if you're thin, doesn't mean you're physically fit, which a lot of people get confused. But you want to make sure that you're in good shape, that your heart's healthy, that your muscles and all those things are a good working order, and that you're working them out. So again, if you're not working out at all, you might be a 0 or 1. But if you're in the gym 4 or 5 times a week, you're watching what you're eating, you're doing all of these types of things, making sure you're getting a good amount of rest, drinking water, and all these things, then you could be a 9 or 10 on that scale. So, and it's all subjective. This is subjective to how the person feels, where they feel they are. There's no one to measure to determine how fit you are, or these different areas, how social you are, or how well you're doing things in your particular family or what have you. So the idea is for you to just gauge it based on your own estimates, and then make decisions to move away from that and to get better and to get stronger. So any of the areas where a person would rate themselves as a 5 and below, always incline them to create at least 3 goals in those particular areas, so that they can strengthen those areas more quickly. And then the other areas where they're kind of 5 and above, which doesn't mean that's great or even good, but let them start off with maybe 2 goals in each of those areas, and then they develop SMART goals for those. So they'll at least have 12 SMART goals, at least 2 for each area of their lives to start with. But once you have the SMART goals, we then need to put action steps in place. We need to know, how am I going to go from making $25,000 in 2015 to 75,000 in 2016? If you're working, I don't know, if you're if you're making $25,000 an hour, $25,000 a year. I'm trying to think, what might you be doing? Let's say you're a cab driver. I don't know why I chose that, but let's say you're a cab driver. I know you guys are entrepreneurs, so this doesn't really apply, but just go with the example. But if you're making $25,000 a year, let's say as a cab driver, so how do you get to $75,000 a year? Can you be on the road 3 times as much? Yeah, maybe, maybe not. Depends on what you did the last year. If you were doing that, if you're working full time, then you probably can't triple your hours uh, to accomplish that goal. So you kind of have to figure out, well, okay, how am I going to make $75,000 a year? Oh, okay, well maybe I have to choose a different plan. Just like if you're an entrepreneur and you're selling something, let's say you sell, let's say you make flyers or something. You make flyers for people, and you charge $50 for a flyer. And let's say you made $10,000 in 2015, but you want to make it to $100,000. Now, you either have to make 10 times as many flyers, or you have to consider bringing something else into the equation that's going to generate more revenue, or, of course, you could increase your prices to a degree. And a lot of people get scared about that because you think if you increase your price, you can automatically decrease the number of people. That's not necessarily the case. That doesn't always prove out to be true. But even if it does, that's not necessarily a bad thing either, because you're still getting paid more per transaction, which allows, so if a few people fall off, that means you have the capacity to do more transactions and subsequently make more money doing the same thing. So if you can get to the same number of transactions by growing your client base, then you can wind up just generating more revenue simply because you increased your prices. And sometimes clients have to do that. As a matter of fact, one person I was working with, the first thing I told her was that she needed to at least double her fees. Now she's a coach, and I said she needed to double her fees because she was charging 250, around 250 a month for one-on-one coaching, one-on-one health coaching. And well, I can't get into how the whole progression of the thought process to help a person understand reshaping their prices. But the fact of the matter is, her pricing was not in alignment with the benefit that she was bringing to her client. So I said that she needed to double her fees. So in a situation like that, it makes you see where it would be a lot easier to reach a goal, but then you also have to obviously replace the clients, but not as many, but you still have to replace some of the clients that you may not have, who can't afford that particular price point. But you just have to move to a market where those folks can afford what it is you're doing. There's always someone that can afford your product, and there's always someone that can't afford it. So just because someone can't, or because your price changed and then they can't, that's not an indication that your price is too high for the market. It just means it's too high for them. Make sure that you got that clear in your head. Too high for an individual, too high for a particular person, too high for a particular group of people has nothing to do with whether or not your price is too high for the market. You may just be putting your product in front of the wrong person. If I was a Mercedes salesperson, and I take my Mercedes, now this is, yeah, I'll use this as an analogy, but if I were to take a $70,000 car, and let's say we sold cars, we sell cars, I don't sell cars, but let's say you sold cars door to door. Now I'm not going to take that $70,000 Mercedes to a neighborhood that's mostly Section 8 rentals and try to sell a $70,000 car, because just the pure economics of it. Now this is not a knock on anyone in any particular place in their lives. This is just simple economics. But generally speaking, if you're allowed to get Section 8 housing, you probably can't afford a $1,200 a month car payment, right? That's usually a fair statement, that you can't afford it. So I'm not going to take that car there. So does that mean I should stop trying to sell Mercedes? No. It means I should take that Mercedes somewhere where the income is higher, where the income of the people that I'm talking to is higher, so that they can afford what it is I'm sharing, or the product or the opportunity or what have you that I'm sharing. And this is for some of you with products and services where people may, as my father used to call it, he'd say they poo-poo an idea, or he would poo-poo something, but they're poo-pooing your idea or kind of blowing off your thing or making you feel lower about what it is you're marketing or selling or what have you, or your opportunity or your offer because of the price point. And that has nothing to do with you. It has nothing to do with the thing that you have. It has everything to do with their perception of the value of the thing that you have. Now, their perception, you can't determine their perception completely. Now, you may not have fully articulated it in a way so that they understand the full benefit, so they understand, yeah, okay, I understand why someone would pay that amount of money, even if they can't afford it. Because there's been plenty of things that I've been presented that I couldn't afford, but I could certainly see the value in, and I would have done if I could. And some things I waited until I could afford it, even for some training and some coaching and things of that nature. There's been times where I couldn't afford $1,200, a $1,200 coaching package. It wasn't one-on-one. It was like a one-time package purchase. I couldn't afford it when it first came up, but about 2 months later, once I was able to, I went back to that source and purchased that product for $1,200 because I understood the value was there. My pockets weren't in alignment with the value. So because people are going to look from the perspective of their pockets, a lot of times you can't make a determination. Don't let that determine the value of your product. Understand that what you bring to market. Understand the benefit that it brings to your clients, your potential clients or prospects, and then move accordingly. But don't let someone else's perspective on your product jam you up. So again, it's about action, having action steps, putting action steps in place to go from here to there. What does that look like? What is it going to look like? For some of you, it may mean going to networking events and engaging people more. It may be setting up, getting on LinkedIn if you're not already. If you're on LinkedIn, it may mean part of your process for this year, one of your action steps this year is going to be to get to the point where you have over 500 connections. That's a very important aspect because it gives you a bit of social credibility in LinkedIn to have over 500 connections. As a matter of fact, there's groups for people with over 500 connections. But some people actually look at that to make a determination as to whether or not you're making market penetration or whether or not you're kind of established out there by the number of people you have. There's a bunch of things that you may want to consider. There's maybe you don't have your website up yet. Maybe that's something that's part of your plan for this year. But you need to have some steps in place that are specifically derived to drive you towards that additional revenue if that's your goal. If your goal is to lose weight, you need to have some very specific action steps in place. Okay, maybe you don't work out at all. Well, you're not going to become the world's greatest athlete overnight. So what you may want to do is say, hey, you know what? One of my goals is going to be, I'm going to go walking 3 times a week in the morning. I'm going to stop buying cookies and ice cream, and I'm not even going to keep it in the house anymore. It's kind of a simple goal, but it still could be a goal worth having. I'm going to, I don't know, maybe you have a thing for ice cream. Maybe you eat, I knew somebody who used to eat ice cream every day, every night. They weren't heavy either, but they used to eat the ice cream every night. But if that's a thing for you and maybe a challenge, maybe you want to say, okay, I'll reward myself once a week with ice cream. Maybe you don't take it out altogether, but you're going to decrease that. There's something that you need to do, some steps you need to do. Maybe you're going to go visit Jenny Craig or what's the other one, Weight Watchers or something. Maybe I'm going to join a gym. Maybe I went in the gym. Maybe I'm going to join a karate school because maybe I thought going to the gym would be boring. Maybe that would be more interesting. Whatever it is, it doesn't. I'm not here to help you determine what exactly the plan is, but what I'm telling you is you need to have a plan. You're not going to lose 20, 30 pounds just arbitrarily or just because you're thinking good, positive thoughts. You're not going to increase your revenue by $25,000 or $50,000 in a year just because you're positively thinking. You need to positively be doing something. You need to positively be taking some steps towards your goal. So you want to make sure that you have some action-oriented steps. So if your goals are written out, you should know not only what I'm going to be doing by the end of the year, you should know what you're doing what needs to be accomplished over the next 90 days, the next 60 days, the next 30 days, what's happening over the next week. So if you didn't do them yet, if you didn't do them for this week, that's fine. We're already about midweek, so you want to think maybe tomorrow or Friday, you'll start writing out what it is you're going to do next week, next from Sunday to Saturday, or whatever way you want to look at the week, from Monday to Sunday, whatever. But you want to determine, what am I going to do next week? Look at your goals, and then what am I going to do next week to move me towards those goals? And then you want to make sure that you're doing that every week, so that you have this regimented plan to every week, plan out your week to know, this is what I'm doing to take me closer to my goals. And it also becomes an accountability point for you, because it's a reminder that, oh, every week, put that on your calendar, set it in your calendar. Back to the example of the walking or trying to lose weight, if that's one of your things, put that in your calendar on your phone too. You always have your phone with you anyway. You might as well use it for some good. But anyway, so you want to make sure that you put a scheduled time in your calendar, so every week you're sitting down, taking that half hour to an hour. It might take you a little while, especially in the beginning, to plan out your week. And I don't mean plan out your week, especially if you're a full-time entrepreneur. I don't mean fill every nook and cranny of every minute of every day with some particular activity. Just make sure you're getting 2-3 things done. I don't mean 2 or 3 things off your total goal list. I mean 2 or 3 tasks that need to be done. 2, 3, maybe 4 tasks that need to be done over the course of a day, and then make sure that those are getting knocked out every day. So over the course of a week, you're knocking out 15, 20 things, 20 little steps towards your ultimate goal. So then you can look back over the week and say, oh, I did this, I did that, I did the other, and you can feel good about those successes. And make sure you take a moment to celebrate those successes as well, because a lot of times we beat ourselves up for the things that we fall short on, but we don't encourage ourselves for the things that we do very well, or that we've done well enough, or better than we used to do even. So make sure you have those, you have your SMART goals, make sure you have your action steps. But then once you have your action steps in place, and that's cool. So you know where you're going, you kind of know what the steps are, you know what you need to be doing next, because you put action steps in place. So you kind of just need to take those action steps and transfer them right from there to maybe a to-do list for the day or for the week, and then just pick what day of the week those things are going to be done on, and that'll make it simpler for you. There's plenty of tools out there. This one I used to use, I think it's called Goal Tracker, Goal Tracking, something like that. But there's a number of websites and tools out there, tools for your phone, tools for online, tools for both. There's a bunch of tools that you could use. Some people use Asana. I've heard people using that to help them keep track of what it is they're doing. You just have to find that if you need a tool, you just need to find a tool that's going to work for you. A lot of them have trial offers, especially if it's just you. Sometimes they're indefinitely free because what you're doing is small enough that they don't charge for it. So anyway, just look into the tool, figure out what works for you, but make sure that you have those 2 components in place. Your SMART goals for at least two SMART goals for 6 areas of your life. I didn't give you the 6, but I'd have to send, you know what I'll do? I'll post that on the Facebook page, facebook.com/Make Impact, MAKEIMPAKT. Again, facebook.com/Make Impact, MAKEIMPAKT.com. I'm sorry, there's no .com. Facebook.com/Make Impact. I'll post up on there the file, the wagon wheel file, so you guys can grab that. I don't want to have to try to email to the people that were on here, and I want it to be available for people who didn't listen to it through that source, and maybe they're listening to this or watching this webinar through another source. So you guys will be able to just go get that, and that'll be something you guys can use. So again, so you have those things in place, the SMART goals, you have action-oriented steps, and then one of the things that also gets left off very often by a lot of entrepreneurs is there's no accountability in our lives. A lot of times as individuals, we don't have accountability, and as entrepreneurs, we have even less accountability in our lives. At least when you were at work, you were at least at least somewhat, excuse me, you're at least somewhat accountable to a manager or someone, maybe a team lead. But sometimes as entrepreneurs, there's not a lot of accountability around us, or we have to seek out a level of accountability. And I challenge you to do just that. Build a team around you, get some accountability in your life. It could be through a business coach, it could be through a business partner, it could be through just someone that you respect and have a lot of respect and admiration for, who will tell you the truth. You need someone that's willing to tell you the truth. So when you're off, they can tell you that. When you're lollygagging or just kind of not getting it done, they're going to call you on the carpet with it. You don't want someone who's just going to excuse me, you don't want a yes man or yes woman. You don't want someone who's just cheering you on to be cheering you on, or because they're so infatuated by how great you are that they can't tell you when you're slipping. So you want to make sure that you have accountability in your life in some form or fashion. And there's all kinds of ways to get it in your life. It's available, and again, in many forms. If you can't think of any ways, certainly send me an email or connect with me, and I'll help you identify some accountability options for you so that you can get the accountability in your life. But accountability will help you to keep focused on reviewing your goals regularly, and it'll help keep you on track. So a lot of times we wind up going over our steps again because we simply lost our way for a minute, for a period of time. And the more accountable we are, whether that accountability is weekly or it could be daily in some people, in the lives of some folks, but depending on how often that accountability is, it's that opportunity. You get that many more opportunities to make sure that you're traveling down the right path. So again, I challenge you to have some accountability in your life, and especially in your business, to keep you on track with where you're going to go. If you're a nonprofit, you may have, well, even if you're a corporation, you could have some shareholders or board of board of directors, or some type of board that could be helping to keep you accountable as well. But even if you have that, I still would have a different level of accountability for your day-to-day activities, because you're only accountable to them when you meet, and maybe for some things in between. But you want to have a higher level of accountability. They found that people that succeed the most have even more accountability in their lives, because they're always bouncing their ideas off of people and always being challenged to do more, or to walk the talk that they've put out there. So again, have some accountability in your life. And then I wanted to share this with you guys as we wind this webinar up, is that this is the picture on the left is how people very often look at failure and success. They look at failure being one path and success being another path. And I really wanted to get a different type of illustration, but this one kind of illustrates the idea behind it, of what I wanted to present to you guys, is that what life is really like, or what success is really like, is the picture on the right, where you will fail many times on your way to success. And as one person put it, like, sometimes you think of failures in one direction, successes in the other, and the fact of the matter is, actually, failure is just one of the stepping stones on your way to success, just like in this illustration is showing you. And the reason I'm sharing that with you is because as you're pursuing your goals, there's going to be things that you're not going to do correctly, and you're not going to reach some of your sub goals, and subsequently you're not going to reach some of your bigger goals or your overall goals, maybe for the year. Some of those, and some of you may hit them all perfectly. But if you hit them all perfectly, sometimes I wonder if we've challenged ourselves enough. So you want to make sure that you're challenging yourself to the point where those goals, again, are stretchingly realistic. So there should be some level of failure. There's no baby that's ever learned to walk without having fallen sometimes before they got the hang of that whole quote unquote walking thing. And if you're doing something and you're so successful at it, that you're not falling or you're not failing in it. It means you're not pushing yourself or you're not challenging yourselves in areas. You're not willing to take risks. You're not taking the risks that you should be taking. I was just sharing with someone recently a story about roller skating. I used to roller skate all the time, really every week. And generally, even when I got a little bit older, I started going every other week and would take my daughter with me. And someone asked me one time, they said something about falling, or hey, don't you, or they were talking about falling. They said, well, don't you fall? And I said, actually, no, I don't. And they were like, oh, come on, like I was making it up. And I said, no, really, I don't fall, or it was a very rare thing for me to fall on roller skates. But as I'm talking to you guys tonight on this webinar, one of the things I'm recognizing is part of the reason I wasn't falling is because at some point I had mastered what I was doing, but I was no longer challenging myself to get even better. I was not challenging myself to such a degree that I allowed myself to fail to that degree that I actually fell. Now, I'm not encouraging us as we get older to go out there falling and stuff, but the fact of the matter is, to reach the level of success, certainly high levels of success, there's no way for you to get there without falling occasionally, without having some miscues and some missteps. So I want you to think about this image on the screen and remember those failure points do not indicate that you're headed in the wrong direction. They may, in fact, indicate that you're on the right direction. You're simply identifying paths that you don't want to take, or you're finding options or choices that are not going to be the right ones for you, so you progress forward onto the next one, but potentially pointing in the same direction. So basically what I'm saying is, if your particular business, I don't know, let's say you were doing network marketing. You're doing a network marketing business, and you get out there and you make a few dollars, and then, oh man, your team starts falling apart. They're not coming out to meetings. They're not doing what they were supposed to do, what have you. Then all of a sudden you start to, oh man, this thing doesn't work. It may not be that the thing doesn't work. It may be your screening process has to get tighter. Maybe you have to help the people in your downline stay connected to their goals and dreams better than you have in the past. Maybe you need to evaluate the red rope policy in your business. Who are you letting onto your red carpet? Are you letting the right people on? Are you evaluating that process as thoroughly as you need to be? So there's different things that you need to consider. But again, failure is part of the process towards success. They asked, I was going to say Alexander Graham Bell, they asked Thomas Edison, he was supposedly asked one time, hey, how does it feel to fail 10,000 times? And his response was, I didn't fail 10,000 times. I simply found 10,000 ways that don't work. And that's really the way you want to perceive things, especially when you have a goal or a dream that's in your heart to accomplish. Then I believe God doesn't give us dreams to taunt us, that he gives us those dreams for us to accomplish them, and that you can accomplish your dreams, all the things that are in your heart to do. But you got to be willing to persevere and push through the challenging times, because they will be challenging. You will have failures. You will have times where you wonder if you're on the right path or what have you. But I challenge you to keep pressing forward. Keep striving for success in your life and in your particular business. And now it's just time for action. Now, we talked about action steps. We've talked about developing SMART goals, right? We talked about developing SMART goals. And then after the SMART goals, we talked about creating action steps for that. We talked about putting accountability in our lives, right? So really, you guys are walking away with some homework assignments. Even those that have your goals already, you want to make sure your goals are SMART. You want to make sure that you go to facebook.com/make impacts. You want to go in there and grab that sheet for the wagon wheel. Make sure that you have goals set up in all these areas of your life. Because what you don't want to do is, you don't want to be lopsided, where you have these really strong goals in business and you have nothing for your physical body, or you have no goals for your family life, or for your spiritual life. You want to make sure that your life stays in some level of balance, or gets into balance. So you want to So again, that's your homework assignment. Get to make sure that you have at least 2 goals in each one of those areas. You want to create action steps for those goals. How am I going to get from here to there? How am I going to get to the end of this particular goal? How am I going to accomplish this goal? What do those steps look like from a practical standpoint? I'm going to get, you guys are going to, I'm saying I as you, but you're going to get accountability in your life. Connect with an accountability partner. Again, it could be a business coach. It could be someone connected to you in some other kind of way. So it could be a good friend or what have you. But again, it has to be someone who will call you on the carpet, who you're allowed to call you on the carpet, and you're not going to give a bunch of excuses to, but you're going to allow yourself to walk through that process and to grow through it, which may be the growth that you need to reach your goals when we talked about stretchingly realistic goals. So you want to make sure that these pieces are in place. All these pieces are in place, and now once you have those pieces in place, it's time for action, right? Or even for you guys, some of the action is putting some of the other pieces in place. If you don't have accountability, action is going to be getting an accountability partner over the next couple of days. If you didn't have the goals developed, it's going to be getting those goals written out and developed. Let's say give yourself till Sunday or this weekend, couple days. I forgot, some of you guys may be listening to it on different days, but depending on when you listen to it, give yourself a couple days, because you don't want to set yourself up for failure by saying, oh, I'm going to get these goals done tonight, and then you fall asleep, or the kids interrupt you, what have you. Life happens, right? So you want to give yourself a little time, give yourself some grace. That's a good word to keep in mind. Grace yourself to have failure. Grace yourself to get started. Don't wait forever, but give yourself time to get started. You're not going to change yourself immediately and overnight. Grace yourself through that process. But again, it's time for action. We could talk about this all day. We could spend hours and hours and hours talking about goals and accomplishing goals and how great it's going to feel when you get to you've reached your goal. Hey, I've reached my goal weight. Hey, I've reached my goal income. Now I can buy this or that, or I can do this or that. Whatever the this or that is for you. Now you can have these things, and that really feels great. But between here and there is time for action. So I challenge you guys to get up and take some action over the next couple of days, and not just any old action. You want to take massive action. When I was in a network marketing company before, that's one of the things they used to tell us, that massive action beats massive processing or evaluation, or they call it analysis paralysis by analysis. You don't want to get hung up in thinking over stuff too long. You want to get moving, because even small steps in the right direction is going to trump sitting there thinking over what your next step maybe could be. I mean, you do want to think through those things, but you want to get moving. Even a brainstorm, even if you need to do a brainstorming session, then that's movement, but it's still movement in the right direction. Okay, I'm not sure what I'm going to do. I'm not sure what this is going to look like. Let me just sit down for half hour and brainstorm over some possibilities. Let me sit down with my business partner over here. Let me sit down with my friend and brainstorm with them. Let me bounce some ideas off of them so I can get this thing moving. But you need to take massive action. The reason I chose this picture is because today a bunch of people posted, I saw this video, some people posted it and shared it. Well, someone shared it. I saw it, and then somebody inboxed me this video. And the videos, you guys have probably seen this video today, but it was a video with Steve Harvey in it, and Steve Harvey was talking to his audience, and he was talking about the need to jump, and that's why I chose this particular picture, because this really characterizes what it means to jump. A friend of mine named Giovanni Dixon also can relate to this concept of jumping as well, because this person in this picture, once they've jumped, there is no turning back. There is no option B. There's no fallback plan. They're headed for hopefully the water. But anyway, they're headed to the water, and there's no doubt about it, because they've jumped. They've made it. They're fully committed. They're all in in this process of having, for them, it's probably having fun. For me, it'd be terrifying. But they're all in. So no matter who this is, even if that was me jumping off there, which if you ever see a picture of me jumping off something like that, look for the person in the photo who threw me off that cliff, because I will never do anything like that. But I want to challenge you that when you see something like this, it kind of reminds you of the fact that there's a freedom and exhilaration, I'm sure, that goes along with that. Again, a little bit of fear, maybe a lot of fear, maybe even for this person who thinks it's fun, it's both fun and fearful at the same time. Maybe they enjoy that energy of those two emotions coming together. I don't know, because again, I'm not doing that. But when it comes to your business, some of you have yet to jump. And one of the things that Steve Harvey was talking about, is when you are fully committed to do something, or if there's something you're going after in your life that's big and worth going after, at some point you have to do just that. You have to jump. You have to disconnect from your support system. You have, unless your support system's gone. I don't mean that, but I mean your natural support system. You have to disconnect sometimes, because sometimes they can't relate to where you're going, and they don't have to, because they're not called to where you're called to. They're not doing what you're going to do. They're not wired the way you're wired. So you have to do these things, some of these things, very much alone. So you have to jump. You have to let go of the safety thing. You have to let go of the safety net. Pull back the safety net and jump anyway. And a lot of us are afraid to do that. We're trying to, some of you are entrepreneurs and you really want to go full time in your entrepreneur side, but I need my benefits at work, or I need this or that to stabilize my income. And I understand that those are very real concerns, and you need to manage those things. But at some point, you still need to make a decision that you're going to jump at some point. So set a date. I challenge some of you. Maybe it's not this year for you. I don't know what it is. It depends on where you are in your life, where it is you are from a revenue perspective. But at some point, you need to put a date on the calendar. Actually, I challenge you to do that over the next week. To put a date on the calendar of when you're going to jump. When are you going to let go of that and go all in? When you go all in, as if you were gambling, if you were into playing poker, you go all in, you're putting all your chips in. Whatever happens in that hand is what's going to happen. That's going to be the result that you are willing to walk away, because you've gone all in. This person that jumped off this particular cliff, they're all in, because there's no coming back from that particular situation. They're going to the water. They're going to experience whatever it takes to get down to the satisfaction of that plunge or what have you. They're going all in. And Steve was talking about the same thing. And he said that sometimes when you jump, now this is not appropriate for this particular picture, but he was talking about if someone were to, let's say, jump from an airplane. He said sometimes your parachute, or no, he said your parachute is not going to open right away. So sometimes you could get a little scuffed up. You could bleed some. You could get a little hurt and a little bruised and battered. And to me, that's part of that growth process, right? You get stronger through that growth process. As a matter of fact, as a martial artist, one of the things we would do is I would keep pounding my hands on this bag that had little stones in it, or sometimes they had beans in them. But we would just keep pounding them over and over again. And while it looks like you're damaging your hand, what's happening is your body, or your hand in particular, is getting conditioned for that same level of abuse. So now, if I were to do the same thing, if I did something with my hand today, it wouldn't hurt. Let me put it that way. It wouldn't hurt today the way it would have before I started to condition my hands. So that process of getting bruised a little bit, while it hurts at the time, and you might need some Band-Aids and things of this nature, the fact of the matter is it's preparing you for where you're headed. It's making you stronger in the process. So whether you want to take Steve's example or this example of this person jumping off the cliff, and I have another example to share with you about someone doing that. Again, when I was in this network marketing company, they were telling the story of this guy. Actually, the guy was telling the story himself. and he was saying how he had gone to this particular network marketing company's event sort of by accident because he was at this hotel for another business conference, for another business reason, for the company he worked for. And he saw all these people having all this fun at the hotel. So he said, man, I wonder what these people are doing. Look like they're having a ball. So he went over there and started talking to them. Hey, what's going on here? And they started telling him, hey, this is this company. This is what we're doing. We're having this little conference, et cetera, et cetera. He said, oh, wow, that sounds interesting. And he listened to what was going on, and he was so energized and so enthralled by what was going on at this event that he decided, he said, man, these people making, and he heard them walk across the stage, saw them walk across the stage and heard them talk about how much money they were making. He said, if they can do that, certainly I can do that too. So he finishes up his conference there, whatever he was at that hotel for, and he drives home. And on his way home, before he gets home, he calls his boss and quits his job. He went all in. He took massive action. And again, I'm not telling any of you to quit your job, so don't go quit your job and then tell your spouse that Kelly said to quit your job. I'm just telling you that sometimes, not sometimes, you're going to have to jump in. The question is, how are you going to jump in? I could jump in a pool on the shallow end. I could jump in a pool on the deep end, but the water's no less cold on either end that I've ever noticed anyway. So if you're jumping in, at some point you got to get all the way in. You have to go all in. And that's what Steve was saying in his video, and that's what I'm sharing with you. Take massive action. Take the steps that you need to take this year. Do the things that we've talked about already. Again, make sure your goals, if you have goals, make sure they're smart. If you don't have any, develop your goals. Make sure you have at least 2 goals for each area of your life, and then take those, each one of those goals, develop action steps for them. And then once you have action steps, make sure you have accountability in your life. Actually, get the accountability as soon as you can, because they can help you to review your goals, even to make sure you're setting up good goals for yourself. Have all those things in place, and then start taking action, and not just any old action. Make sure you take massive action towards your goals. I want to thank you guys for being a part of this webinar. I always enjoy this time of year and getting a chance to share with other entrepreneurs these types of things. I love sharing with entrepreneurs how they can take themselves to the next level, how they can accomplish their goals, because that's what I'm empowered to do, is help entrepreneurs. Well, what I do as a business coach is I help entrepreneurs to attract more clients. But what I do as an individual is I help entrepreneurs to be empowered to reach their goals, which may be to get more clients and to create more revenue and things of that nature. But sometimes it's just getting reset on the right path. Sometimes it's just being encouraged to know that you can do it. You can accomplish your goals. It doesn't matter how old you are. It doesn't matter how young you are. It really doesn't matter necessarily how smart you are. So sometimes you just need to be smart enough to put smarter people around you. But it doesn't matter what the circumstances are. I just want to challenge you to overcome them, or to be at least committed to overcoming those challenges and to reach the goals that are in your heart to reach. I thank you for participating in this webinar. Certainly let others know about it. I'll share out a link so that you guys know where it is once it's posted up on YouTube, and then you guys could go and view it there at any time, and go back and go over them, some of the steps over and over again if you need to. But I want you guys really to exceed your goal. So what I want to do right now is just see if any of you have any questions right now for me, because this is Q&A time. I wanted to see if there's any questions for me. If not, we can close it. But I'll give you a few minutes and see if you can put any questions that you have in the chat box. Oh, I see some. Oh, there were statements going on all along. I can't see that. Just so you guys know, couldn't see the chat box because of the way my screen was shared. Okay, so I see some statements from, okay. So some people are just sharing what their goals were. I don't know what this, Brenda put in a statement and spoke, but I see one, I don't know if that's on the screen, 1.7. Maybe that's a thing. I'm not sure what that is, but it was talking about finding customers. Um, oh, oh, okay. I think I got it. So one of Brenda's goals, she's talking about um, being able to purchase a sewing machine and then finding new customers. Now, the finding new customers is one of the areas that I'd like to work in the most, and that's to help entrepreneurs find and attract, quite honestly, attract more clients. Now, in the particular case of, uh, it doesn't really matter what the business is. If you're trying to attract clients, problems that people, one of the problems that I see with entrepreneurs when they try to attract new clients is they try to produce advertisements or promotional pieces or Facebook posts or tweets and whatever. They try to do things that make a client they try to make a big noise and get people to, and essentially they're saying, hey everyone, anyone who might be interested in what I'm doing, hey everyone, look over here at this because I have this thing. I have this product, I have this service, I have this book, this gadget, this whatever. I have these products available to you. And that's how they believe they're going to draw in more clients. The fact of the matter is, what you really want to do is you want to go to where your clients are. Now, you have to get out of the mindset first that your clients are everyone. Even though you could possibly serve everyone, you want to think about who your ideal client is. And this is not one of those videos on when I talk about ideal clients, but you have to understand who your ideal client is and then go to where those ideal clients are. So, and for your goals, one of the things you want to do is you want to make sure that you identify, hey, who is my ideal client? If you don't know who your ideal client is, there's a chance that you might represent your ideal client because you might be, oh, there's hands raised. I don't know who has their hands raised, but if you have your hand raised, you could just type whatever into the chat window and then I'll, respond to it there, respond to whatever your question is in there. But again, for the whole target audience, you want to identify who your target audience is, who your ideal client is. And if you don't know who your ideal client is, again, it could be you. You might represent it because I'm an entrepreneur and I represent the type of entrepreneur that I wanted to serve. Entrepreneurs. I'm starting to lean towards even refining my list to entrepreneurs over 40, but I haven't. Oh, you're welcome. But I haven't really refined that just yet to being over 40. But I am an entrepreneur and I was looking for the ability to attract and connect with more of my ideal clients so I can relate to where my clients are. So when that's what they're looking for, I can connect with them on that level. So you want to make sure that you identify who that ideal client is. The other choice could be that you want to, your ideal client could be whoever your best client has been. You think about who your best client is, who spent the most money with you. For Brenda, it could be an organization. I know you were doing, at one time, oh, you were doing, I don't remember if they were, I want to say they were jackets maybe, but you were doing something for, I was going to say fraternal organizations, frats and sororities maybe, or some other type of organization. But anyway, but if those are the types of organizations, I mean, assuming you like doing work for those organizations and those organizations are your best types of clients, then you want to look for clients like that. So if you've done it for local chapters, let's say in the Philadelphia area, maybe want to, touch base with some folks maybe that are a little further away, maybe down by the shore, um, maybe down a little further south into Delaware, or maybe even Baltimore, or a little further north, because depending on your work or how simple or challenging it is to get your work into the right person's hands, it may not matter. I don't know how much geography matters to you. If it doesn't matter much, you may want to think about that, or just think of other organizations that are similar. So if you've done it for, let's say, um, fraternal organizations tied to, let's say, colleges, you could do um, organizations such as Fraternal Order of Police, or you could do it for the firemen, or you could do it for other organizations like that. So you want to look into other people that you've served well and look to serve them. If for some reason that's not what you want to go into another arena and you don't really like serving those types of organizations for whatever reason, then you want to really define what that ideal client looks like for you, and then go to where they are, wherever those folks are. So if you're on LinkedIn, again, I'm going back to the whole group thing. If you're serving those types of groups and you're on LinkedIn, what you want to do is go onto LinkedIn and communicate with people that are in groups where those folks are meeting. So if you're trying to meet with, let's say, firemen or those types of folks, then you want to go to look for groups that are housing firemen, where firemen are gathering. Where are they getting together? Or go directly. You could go physically to those types of places, or you could call those types of organizations on the phone and find out how things are getting done currently, and then begin to present your work to them. But you want to take your product and put it in front of the eyeballs that would appreciate it the most. Again, my example earlier with the Mercedes, taking it to the places where people are on Section 8 housing, or they would not necessarily be able to afford the car, is not your best use of time. You want to take a Mercedes to somewhere where people are already interested in that type of thing. And that would kind of be a good example. So, that's why magazines like in GQ magazine, they'll have really high-end products, because they know that their clientele is interested in high-end stuff, even if it's only for vanity's sake. And I'm not saying it is, because I'm not judging the people, and I have no idea why someone spends $8,000 or $10,000, let's say, for a watch. But people do it. Some people spend $30,000 for a car. Some people spend $300,000 for a car. So people make these decisions. You just have to understand the thought processes of the person that you're serving and go to where they are. Now, if you have a competitor, if you know of somebody who's doing the type of work you want to do, and they're doing it on a pretty grand scale, look and see where they're doing their marketing, and see if it's effective. If it's online, it's not an easy process, but it can be done where you can see exactly where those people are spending their marketing dollars, see what kind of returns they're getting, and then you can market your same products and services right in the same source, because you already know the right people are going there to look at those. So those are the types of things that you want to do. Get your product or service in front of people who are already interested. Okay. Um, okay, exactly there, the Greek letter organizations. So, so we think of now the particular group that you're connected to, that's they call it Greek letter organization, but it's also, this one happens to be one of a particular, happens to be for, I guess they don't call themselves exclusively, but it's primarily African American. So you've done work on that side. You may want to choose to branch and look into organizations that aren't serving exclusively, um, let's say, Caucasian or non-African American, but ones that serve other groups. Like a lot of times we think of those groups if you're in a group, but sometimes we want to think outside of those groups. So think of, look at the Greek letter organizations that are tied to technology, or just, just local to where you are, because where you happen to live happens to be just outside of University City. So because you're kind of in that area, you want to take advantage of the fact that there's a lot of those organizations around that you might be able to approach and be able to get your product in front of, because there's just so many of them. And that particular town that you're in is a college town for all practical purposes. There's a lot of colleges and universities, so there's a lot of options there. And it doesn't matter what your product or service is, no matter who's on the line or who's listening to this webinar, you want to do the same thing. Think about, again, do some brainstorming. Think about how you can get your product or service in front of the right folks. And then attracting more clients becomes an easier process because you're in front of the folks that already want or need your product and service. You're not trying to convince a room full of people to buy something they don't want or need. These are things that they're already going to purchase. They might as well be getting them from you. So you need to make them aware of you in that regard. Now, some of the other things that you shared about being able to create products for, again, you have to try to classify them. You don't want to lump them, but you want to create an idea of who that ideal client is. So you can have one, and you can have multiple target audiences. A lot of times people don't talk about that, but you can have multiple target audiences. So your one target audience could be Greek letter organizations. That might be the thing that becomes your bread and butter. And then, but you want to know, okay, I can serve, like, I think you said something about gown. No, you didn't say gowns. You definitely said about alterations and things of that nature. So what kind of people need alterations? Maybe people getting, during prom season, weddings and things of this nature. Could be any number of things. But if it's those types of organizations, maybe you can connect with companies. Maybe you could do some contract work behind the scenes with companies that are doing alterations, or somehow get in front of it and maybe connect with people that are wedding coordinators, and then connect with wedding coordinators. They're doing weddings, and they can say, oh, here, I know this person that can help you with this. Now, I know the dress places normally have their alterations, but if when the women are getting the bridesmaids dresses done, that seems to be a bit of a mix, a bunch of ways that gets addressed, I guess I'll say. So there may be ways to think around, like, you really got to brainstorm how you can get in front of those people that are already thinking that are going to need those processes. And you have to mention women and plus sizes. And I talked about earlier about people on weight loss. So people who are in the process of trying to lose weight. So people that are registered for like a Jenny Craig and stuff like that, perhaps you could offer a service where you're helping them, instead of having to go out and buy all new clothes right away, helping them transition some of the clothes they have into smaller sizes so that they don't have the same large investment. That may be a way to go as well. So there's a bunch of ways that you could kind of look at that. So, yeah. Does anyone else have any other questions? And again, you guys can reach out to me. My contact information is on the screen. Feel free to email or give me a call, and I'll help you in any way that I can with establishing or setting up or following through on your goals, or helping to point you towards any tools that you may be able to use. Again, I didn't intend for it to go quite this long, but the information, we were essentially done, I think, by about 8:20, so it went a little over an hour. But I definitely hope that the information was beneficial to you guys. I hope you're able to take this information and use it and actually establish your goals and successfully demolish those goals, demolishing them in a good way, of course, for this year. I wish you guys all the best for this year and beyond. I hope that you reach all of your goals, that you have all of your dreams accomplished this year. I hope you can look back on 2016 with amazement and wonder over how you were able to accomplish so much this year. If there's anything I can help you with moving forward, certainly reach out to me. Otherwise, again, I would love for you to take down my information and contact me, especially as you're accomplishing your goals, or maybe towards the end of the year. Hopefully we'll be in contact and you can let me know just how you've done over the course of the year, because I'd love to hear your feedback on how your year has progressed and how this information was able to benefit you and be of assistance to you in reaching your goals. So again, I thank you for being a part of this webinar. I thank you for spending this time with me. And again, I hope it was beneficial to you. And I look forward to being in contact with you guys very soon. You guys have a great evening and have a great rest of this 2016 year. Good night.